crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I have a card for the new Nook Designs October release. The first stamp set of the release is called Holiday Smooches, and it features a couple of different animal couples in a little Christmas kiss. And I like this particular stamp set because while it is very Christmas based, a few of the critters could certainly be used at other times of the year. Particularly, I'm thinking Valentine's Day. Some of the critters have very Christmassy looking hats on, but the penguins just have some scarves, and that would definitely still be appropriate for February, at least where I live, where it's still pretty cold. Or the little birds in the stamp set actually have no sort of holiday distinguishing marks on them, so you could use them all year round for Valentine's, wedding, Christmas, of course, just a love card in general. The sentiment I'll be using today is Merry Christmas, and I am going to create two clean and simple cards, but just show the coloring of one on camera. Unfortunately, some of the coloring was really difficult to watch because of the autofocus feature on my camera, and I have looked it up and done some research, and I cannot figure out how it would be turned off. And that's really frustrating because I can't get close enough without it then kind of always trying to refocus, and that is, obviously going to be a problem for people who get motion sickness. But the part with coloring the seals stayed pretty good, so I'm going to show that. And I'm using my Copic markers for coloring the seals. I have tried to slow it down, and I'm going to try to walk through the process a little bit more as people have requested that. I am using the W series, as I often do, for gray animals. I like the warmth that it adds, and also if you look up pictures of animals, they do tend to fall more in the warm gray or brownish gray. I'm going to start with my W1, and I am going to just outline the edges because I want to keep the center white until the very end. Then I went in with my very darkest, which in this case is W5, and then I just did a little touch of the W5 because there's not a lot of area for blending, and I don't want it to be too dark overall. I don't want them to appear black. And so I pulled that in just a touch. Then I pulled that W5 out with the W3 about twice as far as the W5 was. So each time I just pull the color a little bit farther, but try to leave the center as light as possible so there's enough contrast to really make the animals look like they have dimension to them. In this case, I'm adding the shadow to the belly and also right under the hat that he's wearing. And for the other little seal, I will add the shadows by the scarf instead. So those are basically drop shadows, but there's also a shadow on the belly because they will be sitting against the ground, and so it would be the shadow created from the ground. And I will ground them with a little bit of some C color, I think a C1 and a C0, just to add a touch there. In the smaller areas, like the scarf and the hat, I do a touch of blending, but it can be difficult to blend in really small areas like that. I definitely recommend using as light of touch as possible, and having thicker paper certainly helps because it can take more of the ink. And so what I did was I just touched down a bit of the light and then took the darkest one and did it just on the very, very edges of the scarf and blended it back out with the lighter marker and the reds. I am getting some bleeding, but I'm trying not to get too sort of worked up about, too upset about that, because it's going to be kind of the nature of particularly the red marker. And so just have a really soft hand and a gentle touch when using the markers so that you're less likely to get the bleeding, and also use your 0 marker to push the color back in. I decided to add some dots with the W7 to the bellies because if you look at pictures of seals, they do have that little bit of dot pattern on some of them, and so I wanted to incorporate that, make them look a touch more realistic. And for the mistletoe here, I'm only using one green marker, but I'm getting a little bit of shading by simply going over the area that I want darkest more than one time. You can get some very rudimentary simple blends and variation in color just by adding more marker, because the more Copic you put down, the darker it gets. So in a small area like that, you don't even need to bother with two colors. Just going over it will help. Now, for a clean and simple card, one way to add some interest and detail is to simply ground your animals in the white space. And you can do this by creating a little bit of a shadow with C0 and C1. I prefer the cools for the shadows, but of course work with what you have. If you had just the W's, that would be fine as well. And I put the C1, which is the darkest color, directly under their bellies, and then blended it out with the C00, which is the lightest color. And you can even blend it further with just the colorless blender. So you really just want to create a really soft shadow. It's just a kind of sketchy line. And then I'm going to add some details with some frosted lace stickles, and that will be it for this card today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more crafting tutorials, including Newton Nook designs or Copic coloring, please subscribe to my channel, and in fact I'll leave you some links to other videos in the description below. This is part of the Newton Nook Designs October release, so you can also check out the link to head over to my blog, where you can enter for your chance to win this particular stamp set. Thanks for watching. Bye.